Bright lights and big cities have always mesmerized young enthusiasts, especially growing up in small-town America. The city is full of excitement and adventure, which seems glamorous, but unfortunately, the lights are blinding to spirited souls from the darkness that awaits them. Morgan Bauer was like most 19-year-olds, craving adventure and excitement the day she packed her bags and left her home in Aberdeen, South Dakota, to board a plane to Atlanta, Georgia, with hopes and dreams of finding herself and her place in this world. Within 24 hours of her arrival in Atlanta, she tasted the bitter taste of reality that no one could possibly prepare her for. This is Morgan's story through the eyes of strangers. Morgan called her mother, Sherry, and asked for her birth certificate and social security card because she was moving to Atlanta, Georgia with a couple of friends. She told her she was going to be with friends because she knew she would worry if she knew her real plans. Morgan had either made a post on Craigslist or replied to one and had arranged to stay with a man and his roommates who lived in Atlanta. She was going to clean the house to make up her part of the rent until she could get a job. When Sherry found out the truth, she tried diligently to talk her out of her plans, even refusing to give her her birth certificate and social security card, but eventually she was forced to give her her documents and let her daughter go out into the world Morgan was not prepared for alone. She boarded a plane to Atlanta and landed on February 12th with little money in her pockets, but rich in hope and ambition. After landing in Atlanta, Georgia, she met up with her new housemates and they went out to an extravagant dinner that evening. She thought everything was going well until the next day after she had went out looking for a job. Upon arriving back to her home, she seen all of her belongings sitting outside with a note attached saying, "Don't come back." Afraid and confused, Morgan called her best friend she grew up with in Aberdeen and told her about the unfortunate event that had taken place. Morgan was low on money, waiting on her tax return money to be added to her H&R Block Emerald card. She didn't want to go back to South Dakota, but was running out of many options. She met a man that evening at a gas station and explained her situation to him. He drove her to Lawrenceville, around 35 minutes away from Atlanta, and rented her a hotel room that night. From there, she traveled to Gainesville, Georgia, an hour away from Atlanta, and got a hotel room. Even though exotic dancing wasn't one of her career choices or goals in life, she had to take a job at a club called On Top of Gainesville as an exotic dancer because she had no money and was over 1,300 miles away from her home. On the morning of February 25th, Morgan Skyped her best friend and they talked for a few minutes. This was the last time her best friend spoke with her. Later that day, her and a girl she had met at the club she worked at decided to go to a club called Tees in Atlanta to apply for a job. The manager told them they had to have a permit to dance in Atlanta. The manager overheard Morgan telling the girl that she would pay for her permit. Morgan actually made a post on the 25th on her Facebook stating she worked at Tees, but she never actually worked there. The night she did her shift at Top of Gainesville, she left with the same girl she had been with earlier and her boyfriend, who was an African-American male in his 20s that drove a truck. The girl, who has told different stories about that night, actually two of them. One story is that they dropped her back off at a gas station at 3700 block of Highway 278 in Covington, Georgia. That's about 30 minutes away from Atlanta, and Morgan had gotten to a green Eclipse with an African-American male. Morgan supposedly met this guy on Tinder, according to the girl. She also said Morgan had planned to move to Tennessee. The second story that was told was they never seen Morgan at all that night, which the guy Morgan had befriended the second night there, who took her to Lawrenceville and paid for her hotel that night, said the second story the girl told was not true. Morgan had sent him a text when she got off from work that night on the 25th that said, Made nothing tonight, only $50. Need to go to the other club tomorrow. He didn't see the text till the next morning on the 26th. He sent her a text back saying, "Hit me up when you get up." Morgan never replied back. He was supposed to meet Morgan that day to get a hotel room key, and after he couldn't get in touch with Morgan, he called the girl Morgan was with the night before and asked her for her address so he could meet up with Morgan and get the hotel room key. The girl would not give him the address, stating her address would not show up on GPS. He knew this was a lie because he had picked Morgan up there before using a GPS. The couple lived in Porterdale, Georgia, around 40 minutes outside of Atlanta. This was also the same area that Morgan's phone last pinged. Morgan's best friend Taryn from back in South Dakota started to get worried when she had not heard from her after the Skype call on the 25th. She waited a few days and finally decided to message Morgan's sister to see if she had heard from her. Morgan's sister had not heard from her but wasn't really worried about it. Morgan's best friend waited a few more days and finally contacted Morgan's mom because Morgan had not been on any of her social media sites. Sherry thought this was strange and contacted the Atlanta Police Department. Law enforcement told her she would have to show proof that Morgan flew to Atlanta, and Sherry did get the proof that they needed. The police department was in no hurry to find Morgan, so Sherry flew to Atlanta and stayed there a month, talking to everyone that knew Morgan and the timeline of events that happened in those short 13 days. She was in Atlanta. Unfortunately, she could not find her, and neither could the Atlanta Police Department. The couple she was with the night have not been cleared. Even though the girl did talk to the police, the girl's criminal past is not known, but her boyfriend had a criminal record of including assault with a screwdriver. One woman that used to date him had charges on him for assault or a similar charge. She stated he did vampire things to her. She later dropped the charges. He had been kicked out of many clubs his girlfriend danced at due to his aggressive behavior. The couple are no longer together. The girl still lives in Georgia, but her ex-boyfriend now lives out of state. In 2017, the Atlanta police investigators took search dogs to one of the couple's grandfather's home and searched for about 3 hours. Found nothing. It took a year for the Atlanta Police Department to do a search. Why would it take them so long to search for Morgan? Is it because they're understaffed? Or is it because she was a temporary exotic dancer? No matter what her occupation was at the time of her disappearance, she deserves to be found. Or could it be because of the controversy that arose a month after her disappearance? There was a person that used Morgan's stage name, Sasha Adkins, and made a Facebook under this name. This person contacted the family proclaiming to be Morgan and convinced Morgan's sister she was really Morgan. Even though the person could not answer any of the personal questions Sherry, Morgan's mom, had asked her, only Morgan would know answers to. This person claiming to be Morgan said Sherry had been in contact with her and she knows she was not missing, but continued to advocate for Morgan so she could continue receiving donation money from a GoFundMe account that goes into an account she set up in her name. There's absolutely no proof of mishandling of donated funds and no proof of this Sasha person really being Morgan. But after this information became public, the Atlanta Police Department has slacked off, to say the least, on Morgan's case. Morgan was a naive 19-year-old girl from South Dakota when she boarded the plane to Atlanta, Georgia. She was a very trusting, fun-loving teenager with a big heart before February 12, 2016. Within 13 days, she went from an adventurous kid from a town with 29,000 people to being kicked out into the streets of Atlanta, a city 500,000 people just in the metropolitan area, and that is not including the suburbs of Atlanta. The couple she was with the night said they last seen her in Covington, which is outside the Atlanta city limits. At this point, Morgan could be anywhere. No one actually knows where she disappeared from except for the people responsible for her disappearance. She has no family in Atlanta. It's so important to keep her name alive because she is not from Atlanta and no one knows her. So please don't judge her for what she was doing to survive those 13 days in Atlanta, because this was not who she was. According to her friends and her family, Morgan would just not get up and disappear and not talk to at least one of them. She was a social media butterfly that used social media almost every day. She has not been on any social media accounts since February 25th, 2016. Her best friend bought her a phone card on February 11th, which was good till March 11th. Her phone has not been used since February 25th, 2016. The cell phone carrier said her phone was either broken or the battery has been removed. Morgan's phone last pinged in Porterdale, Georgia, the area where the couple lived at the time. Morgan's mother hired a PI, but it's been told by Sherry that the PI only held up the investigation. Morgan is 5'6", weighing 125 pounds, with long brown hair and blue eyes. She has several tattoos, a sun and moon inside a Celtic 4-star design on her right side of her chest near her shoulder, an anchor with the sentence, "Whatever you love can be taken away, so live like it's your dying day." Morgan preferred African American men, and she may have attended hip-hop concerts or anything that had to do with music. Why has law enforcement not held anyone accountable for the disappearance of Morgan? What about the couple that befriended Morgan? Why were they not questioned any further? Why has law enforcement not checked the so-called Tinder activity logs? If anyone has any information about Morgan and her whereabouts, please call Atlanta PD at 404-546-4235 or Crime Stoppers at 404-577-8477. She's been missing 4 years. How can so much go wrong in just 13 days? For further updates on Morgan's case and many more like hers, like and subscribe to the Missing Truth YouTube channel and join us on our Facebook page. Always remember, some sort of truth remains in a lie.